Hello, I would like to extend a warm welcome and thank you for joining our presentation today. My name is Tiffany Wood-Lysette, and I am a school social worker with Thames Valley District School Board. And this year I'm working with something called the Safe Schools and Wellbeing Portfolio, which allows me to participate in this awesome project. And my other co-presenter, co-supporter of the presenters today, Christy, will introduce herself now.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. As Tiffany said, I'm Christy Darnell. I am also a social worker with Thames Valley, and I'm also attached to that same portfolio with Tiffany. So I'm delighted to be here with our presenters, and I look forward to this presentation.
Without further delay, we are absolutely thrilled to welcome Masa Tarawale, who is the Executive Director of WeBridge Community Services, and Philip Aware Gambra, who is the Director of Research and Grants at WeBridge as well. And so, if you're unfamiliar with their organization, WeBridge Community Services is a nonprofit organization that seeks to bridge the gap in services for Black persons within London and area. This organization is dedicated to helping the Black community by providing culturally grounded counseling, education, and research services and support. So today we are very fortunate to be able to welcome them to discuss supporting our children to understand diversity, inclusion, and belonging. We're so grateful for their time today. And so thank you very much to the both of you for joining us and hosting.
Well, thank you, Tiffany and Christine, for that introduction. Like Tiffany mentioned, my name is Masa Tarawali, and I'm a registered social worker as well. Today, I have with me my colleague, Philip.
Philip Gambra.
Yes. And we'll be presenting on the topic, supporting our children to understand diversity, inclusion, and belonging. But before we go into the presentation, we just wanted to say thank you to the Thames Valley District School Board and the Family Wellness team for creating this opportunity and this space where we all can come together and learn, discuss, and kind of like explore different ways to support our children, which is a great initiative. And we are very happy to be on board and to be part of this initiative as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Tiffany and then Caitlin. I think we are very grateful for this opportunity. And then we like to say that I think this shows how you love your community, the people in the jurisdiction, the children, because as you all know, it's getting a bit of concern with the support with mental health. And one of the issues the research has shown and why this is so important is that these issues are basically what affects kids' mental health. And we are so grateful to be able to be part of this and to support you, to support the student community there. Thank you.
And we also wanted to take this time to thank all of our participants who are here today. We know it's been a busy day most times, and the evenings are really busy with the children and the family, but taking off your busy schedule to come here, we really appreciate that. So moving forward, we just wanted to say that there is no perfect way to talk to our children about race and racism. These topics are complex issues that can be very difficult for us as adults, and especially for everyone, and especially for our children. So our intent for today's workshop is not to judge the parenting style of anybody. It is not to test your knowledge of how much you know, but our focus really is to create awareness about the importance of talking to our children about race and racism at an early age. And we also want to encourage that open and honest conversation. And finally, we just want to share some strategies on how to convey these messages. So basically, those are our objectives for today's workshop.
Thank you. So to start, we had a few questions that we would like you to ponder about as we go through this. So just stay tuned. And I think Stephanie explained it that at the end of the presentation, if you have any questions around them, you can just bring them up, and then we will pick them together.
Yes, absolutely. And if either of you would like me to, take a try at answering some of these questions, I'm happy to do that as well, if that's helpful and might just sort of help the audience to start to think about this particular subject matter or reflect on their own experience or their own needs. Would that be helpful?
Yes,
Yes, please,
excellent.
Stephanie and Christy,
Awesome.
take a try at it.
Absolutely. So, when it comes to understanding the term diversity, inclusion, and belonging, one of the things that I know is that when you appreciate diversity, then and you celebrate it, then and you're like really intentional about including the celebration of diversity, then it creates belonging, and
Yeah.
that's really important. And then the second question that you have there, like concerns around diversity, inclusion, belonging, is sometimes when I work in schools, and I'm also a parent and I'm also a racialized person, that sometimes I think that the general community might think that talking about diversity, inclusion, and belonging is only for a certain portion of the population. And what's really important to me as a mom and someone who is racialized is that, like, I think it's for everyone. And my
Mhm,
concern is, like, how do I help everybody understand that this is important for all kids?
mhm. Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. Kristen, do you have anything to add?
I think I'm just, for me, is a concerns about diversity, inclusion, is belonging, is that sometimes we just select certain identities that we celebrate and bring instead of really, again, being inclusive of everyone.
Mhm,
So I think that's something that is a concern that we sometimes can do a better job at, it is that extending that to everyone regardless of their identity, or specifically because of certain identities that we often don't include.
great. Yeah, those are excellent points, and we want to encourage all participants to also kind of ponder around the questions, because we know as parents, as caregivers, even as service providers, we all have cultures, we all have identities, we all have things that we celebrate. But like Tiffany and Christine rightly said, it's not only about knowledge about diversity, but when you talk about diversity, you shouldn't forget about inclusion and you shouldn't forget about belonging. So that is why the three are very important for us to kind of remind ourselves. So basically, when we talk about diversity, what we are looking at is a term that describes differences between people. So those differences are very like extensive. It could be your color, your race, how you look, what you do. Sometimes it can be like tangible, it can be evident, and sometimes it is hidden that you cannot, because it's embedded in your values, your principles. But these are all things that when we talk about diversity, we want to remind ourselves about. It includes ethnicity, race, marital status, just those unique attributes that we all bring together. And when we talk about inclusion, we want to emphasize that inclusivity goes beyond making people count. It's not only about having the number, but it's also about being intentional in making those individuals contributing members to whatever the goals, the project, the objectives are. And this is what is very important. When you ensure that people feel included, what happens? They have that sense of belonging. Like Tiffany said, there is that sense of belonging, there is that sense of ownership. So as we all are stakeholders in the community, our children are attending like different schools, we attend different functions, parents, caregivers, and service providers, we are all stakeholders in this. And to ensure that, we always need to remind ourselves of what diversity entails and what inclusion entails, and how do we make the space safe to everybody, welcoming to everybody, despite our, let's say, identified differences that we may have. So that is basically how we summarize the definition of diversity, inclusion, and belonging.
Now, from what Masa has just said, I think we as parents, we get into a point whereby we think that some of these things are too big, and that kids should be of certain age before they are introduced to them or they are even allowed to talk about them. But we would differ in this, in a sense that research has clearly indicated that children as young as 3 months old start to really see differences in people and
Mhm,
look with primary caregivers, recognize them right away at the age of 6 months. They already see the differences in people around them and can easily recognize them. There are research that shows about kids that were exposed to dolls and then Barbies, and they can easily differentiate between them, which is so interesting to see. And in my case, I have seen instances whereby children as early as 5 months, 6 months can differentiate between the parents and those that are closer around them. They can recognize them right away with smiles, and people that they are not familiar with, they can start crying. And I think in my one of my examples, the child cried for about 2 hours when the opportunity of seeing one of the parents that he wasn't seeing frequently showed up. And
mhm.
it's amazing to see that what research are saying is really happening in our own experiences, in our own practices. So this is very, very important that the discussions needs to start, and we shouldn't look at that oh no, they are too young, any child is too young. No, it's nothing like too young. They are all important for discussion.
Yes. And to add to what Philip just said, at this early age, the children are also trying to make sense of what is around them and what they are seeing. Even though they may not be able to speak, but we know that as part of the developmental stage, they absorb things, they identify things. So as early as 3 months, like Philip has indicated, children do identify certain things, they notice differences. And as they grow older, what happens is that they want to know more about these differences. They want to understand what it means. Moving forward, this is where conversation around race, racism, diversity, inclusion, and belonging is very important. Talking about diversity, we know can be an awkward conversation to have with our children. And there may be so many reasons. Reasons because of our lived experiences, reasons because of our comfort level, even with the topic itself, our own like personal biases, or maybe the exposure that we have had in the past. However, these uncomfortable conversations, they are inevitable. And the reason why we said they are inevitable, few years down the road, we have noticed a lot of incidents that have happened in the past that are bringing all of this like racism, oppression, discrimination, and biases and prejudice to light. And our children are very smart. They are very smart. They connect with so many different sources where they get information. So what we want to do as parents in collaboration with service providers is helping to educate our children. It's helping to expose our children as early as possible to these conversations. But there are different strategies that we can use. Like my colleague Philip identified, age appropriate conversations are very important because of the developmental stages of our children. Another thing that we also want to encourage is that as a parent, we have to understand that your child's proximity to diversity, maybe being in a multicultural setting, does not mean that the child is really learning a lot from just being in the space. Though they are exposed to the space and diversity, at least it normalizes the fact that, okay, we are all different, we are all unique in our ways. But what we want to do as service providers, as caregivers, and as um, parent is to start having this conversation so that our kids will make sense of what they are seeing and also understand the value behind similarities and behind differences. So this is where we come in as parents and caregivers to support our children.
So, as Masa has indicated, it's so important to understand the different age categories can always impact the level of their understanding. And in doing about this, research also support us that you need to look at certain age categories. So we have under the age of 5. In having these conversations around the home, in a home with children under the age of 5, what are the things that you can look at? And that is some of the things we will say. We have the age under the age of 5, we have the ages between 6 and 11, and then we have the ages those above that age. Now, research and our own practice has indicated that in discussing and having conversations with children about diversity who are under the age of 5, there are certain things that you need to take into consideration, and we are going to list them. For instance, when a child comes and then a child is displaying, oh, today something happened, and so and so wasn't willing to play with me, or so and so told me, oh, my skin looked like a poop, or my food smells is weird. How do you begin this conversation with them? How do you help them to really understand this fact? So those under the age of 5, you have to acknowledge and normalize the differences, because they are wondering what is for them. Sometimes it's even traumatized to them because nobody has said that to them. They are adored, they are so loved in home, they are by everyone. But here in a situation whereby somebody put them in that position, they are lost. They have lost the sense of their self. Oh, now I'm no longer loved. I'm not. So how do you begin that? You need to acknowledge that, normalize that differences. Yes, we are differences. We have different categories of people. And acknowledge that, let them realize that, yes, you see, so and so is different than you in terms of the characteristics, but that doesn't mean that is you as or she or he is superior than you. You need to acknowledge that for them to realize that, yes, encourage and have open and honest conversation with them, so that they understand what is going on. Sometimes some parents have uh, issues that, oh yeah, if I tell him, then maybe it's gonna victimize him or her, and then he will probably go downward more with what is happening. No, be open and have those conversations with them. Let them know what is going on, let them know what has happened, and then normalize that to them, that it doesn't show any superiority. The children know that racism is unfair and unacceptable. So we are talking about children around that age category. Is easy when you say the first thing they will say, oh, this is unfair. That is a gateway that you can have conversation around unfairness, how these issues can be linked to diversity and inclusion. It's not fair. I totally agree. When somebody put you in that position, it's not fair, and they get it. They, oh yeah, mommy, this is not fair. See what is happening here? It's not fair, and then they easily get it. So these are some of the strategies that you can use to start those conversations and help them to get it. It's also about explaining the principle of fairness, like we have said, something that person needs, something more than the other. And I know some of these children under this age you can easily see that in the area of sharing their toys and play materials. And it's easy for, oh, you are not fair. And sometimes you are given some gift or something like, oh no, you didn't treat me fairly. And you have to bring that into some of this conversation and help them to realize how some of these things are also not fair, and they get it. You use images, videos, and objects to discuss racism. We see that they love TV. I don't know how many of you um, who have kids who capture the TV the whole time, the whole evening is their show. And lo behold, you going to turn it off or to watch your news. Oh, heaven break loose. So use those symbols, those things that comes on the on the TVs and the videos as a moment of opportunity to discuss some of these things.
Okay. Yeah. So adding on to what Philip has said, basically, like when he mentioned about acknowledging, sometimes it's also good, like when your child comes up to you and asks you a question, for you to even say, oh, for example, I'm glad that you asked the question. Would you like to talk about it? And giving them that opportunity. What you are doing, you are like giving them that positive reinforcement and opening that opportunity to have that conversation. And we also want to say that even if you don't know how maybe to start the conversation, sometimes you can even start with a question. Like Philip mentioned, if a child comes home and says that, okay, well, my friend didn't want to play with me today, right? You have to ask your child, okay, so how did that make you feel? Sometimes it's also good to 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 listen to them. It's also good to understand their feelings around some of these things, because until we understand how they feel, we are unable to help our children to develop like appropriate responses to some of these experiences or unfair treatment. Philip also mentioned to explain the principle of fairness. One of the things that I want to add to that is about recognizing how and when being unfair is hurtful. So it goes both ways. As the children are playing with their toy or don't want to share their toy with someone else or another child, you have to, as a parent, guide them to understand when being unfair is hurtful. Because these are the ways they do understand when we talk about diversity, inclusion at a younger age. You don't want to expose them to the complexity or the difficult linguistics around the topic at an early stage. What you want to do is to help them to develop empathy, to develop that sensitivity, to understand fairness, because that is how they understand the concept of diversity and inclusion. And then helping your child to get like appropriate responses when they are experiencing unfair treatment, give the child the language that they need to talk about it. So different languages that you can use with your child to talk about some of these concepts, like Philip mentioned, could be using images, using videos, using objects. And most times we want to encourage parents to explore like diverse multicultural toys for their kids, music, and expose them even to the family culture, as basic as that can be. So I am coming from an African background. I'm coming from a large family of 9 children, 9 siblings. It's a big family, including my mom and dad. So it's like 10, 11 of us. It's a huge family. But what I have learned in the past is that when we talk about culture, when we build our cultural pride, we started by what we do as a family tradition, how we celebrate like different events, how we even come together when we are eating in the evening. Sometimes as the like for the females, they put our food together in a big bowl. So if you are 5, you all sit together around the bowl and eat. That created that sense of sharing, empathy for one another and things like that. So we just wanted to add that the younger the kids, you can always modify some of these approaches so that it can meet the need of the child.
Thank you. So as we go into, you ask between the ages of 6 and 11, some of these techniques could be the same, some of these areas could be the same, but you see that there are a few things that you also have to look at. Now, when you look at children between the age of 6 and 11, it talks about that you being participating, be involved in their daily activities. These kids are very active at this stage. They want to do things, they want to play things. And whatever they are doing, you show curiosity. You are curious. You don't want to say, oh, that's weird. And you have to show curious interest in whatever they are asking, whatever they are doing. And through that, you are able to have that conversation with them and educate them. You use that as point of education for them. The other thing is you discuss issues of media. You
Mhm,
know, at this stage, they are very interested in media stuff. They capture things, and many of you already know how they can use their iPad. Even if you are not careful, they don't want to put it down.
mhm,
And those are, you don't want to engage in those power struggle thing, but use that as a point to share and to discuss media stuff around some of these topics and issues. And these days, you see that there's a lot going out there.
mhm,
Yes, every day, day in and day out, something is happening that is
mhm,
connected to these issues and this topic.
mhm,
Again, be honest and open with them about this. Don't sugarcoat it. Be clear so that they understand and they can learn quickly, even better than you thought they would do.
mhm.
You use images, videos, or objects to teach them because they are more visual at this stage. They love it. They thrive on that. If you give them 24 hours, they can stay on it till the evening. Even if you call them to come and eat, I know some of the kids that I deal with. It's sometimes if you are not forceful, they won't eat. And then as a mom, as a dad, you are worried, oh, you are not eating and all of that. So take those advantage and then share, educate them about some of these things.
Yes. And to add to that, one thing that we have to remind ourselves is that our children, at this age of 6 to 11, they move schools. They move from one environment to another. So they see differences, they meet with other people, they interact. But also, this is the age, like Philip is saying, they are more involved in media things. So nothing hides from them, no information, what is going on. For example, when we had the George Floyd issue, even the little kids were very curious. They wanted to know. My question would be that as a parent during that time, think about it. What did you do? What conversations did you have with the kids? What was the discomfort? What were some of the concerns you had about having even this conversation? Because the video was graphic, the things that happened were very devastating. So, in order to support our children, in a way that will help them to really explore these different um, situations out there, these conversations, they need to happen. So just to add something different to this slide is that we have 8 tips for you to choose like good books for your children, because sometimes these are things that are very difficult to do. So number one, when you choose books for your children, we want to encourage you to ensure that these books are speaking to the needs of your children, not because it is recommended. You have to look at the book, make sure that it speaks to diversity, inclusion, and belonging. Make sure that it is at the level of your child's development. Choose books or movies where BIPOC characters are the stars. So when we talk about BIPOC characters, we're talking about racialized, like authors, racialized people are in the book. And you want to ensure that your children have to see that. It's not always that we have to talk to our children about the devastating things that we have experienced. Sometimes they also need to know what the different cultures we are coming from, the different ethnicity we belong to, how have they contributed positively to society. It enhances their self-esteem. It gives them the confidence to even speak up about certain things. So choosing the type of book, making sure like the book has like BIPOC characters that are the leading stars in those books is very, very important. Titles that introduce and celebrate human differences is also very important. To celebrate differences, race, culture, uh, gender, and all of these different aspects that we want our children to be aware of. It's very important. Look for books that depict like positive interaction across differences. It's not always that we have to show those gruesome videos to our kids about someone being killed. Yes, it is the reality of things, but we have to also understand the level of understanding, the developmental stages of our children, the level at which they are. We explain certain things to them, then it makes sense to them. So that is what we also want to encourage. In that process, please do apply critical thinking as you are introducing your kids to those movies, to those books, so that you are being objective in what you are saying to the kids. Not only celebrating the differences, not only making sure that BIPOC members are the stars in there, but also let them understand that everyone is valuable. Everyone's contribution is also important.
Thank you. So now we have the children on above the age of 12, and these are the age category that they seem to be more aware of the environment of what is happening with them. We say that you find out what they know about diversity. These are things that we need open conversation about diversity with them and inclusion. At this stage they can speak their mind, they can tell you what they think, and that is really a good uh, place where you really want to talk with them. And as you know, I know most of you have kids around that age. A friend of mine said they can talk your ear out, they can talk and make you really realize that you need to really listen to them, and they will tell you what they feel. So those are wonderful time to engage with them and let them share their thought, their views on this, so that you can help direct them and direct some of those things that they may share through their conversation. Have questions, expose them to different ways of thinking. You
Mhm,
just critical thinking. You just tell
mhm,
them. You put to them, okay, you see this situation. What would you think? Begin the conversation. I
yes.
had a situation whereby when the war started between Russia and Ukraine, and at this age they will come back. Oh, Dad, do you see what is happening? That was boom opportunity, and they were surprised that she could talk and express her view, and then ask her the questions, what do you think about this, and their view. So it's awesome. That was something that up to now they still remember clearly and use it as a point of directing and engaging her. Encourage children to be involved in change. At that stage, they are also passionate and they want to be change makers. And
Mhm,
that is it. You take that advantage and you go alongside with them and motivate them. And I have seen how much they have come and how much they are able to do engaging using some of these things in their school project, and encouraging their other peers around them. It's amazing to see.
yeah. Yeah, and adding on to Philip's point as well about encouraging our children to get involved. At this stage, we know a lot of our children have started volunteering. They've started doing projects. Some of them have even started babysitting. Some of them, they go for event camp where summer camps where they interact and meet other people. We also want to equip them by not only telling them about diversity, celebrating all the good things about it, but also we want to equip them in how to address or navigate a situation when it occurs. So, and some of the things that we've mentioned up there is encouraging the kids to talk to parents. Let our kids be comfortable to share with us their experiences. I know sometimes it's difficult based on what your child has experienced when they come to you right away and say, Mom, somebody told me that my skin color looks like a poop, or somebody told me that my language is this. The first instinct, I am an auntie to an awesome nephew, but the first instinct, honestly, it brings out anger. It brings out discouragement. Now you are even worried about what your child is exposed to. But what we want to encourage as parents, your reaction or your response to some of these things that our children will tell us will either help the child you either help the child to develop ways of addressing some of these situations that will bring out a positive outcome, or sometimes it may lead to negative outcomes. So what we want to encourage is that have these discussions, maybe not immediately because they are feelings, not immediately with the child, but maybe sometime, and let the child be able to talk to you. Work with the school authorities or whoever is within the community to see what are the process and ways of supporting our children. And then be respectful towards one another. I know sometimes as parents, we come at each other, especially when we know things have gone wrong. Yes, it is different ways that we express our feelings, and we are not here to judge anybody, but we just want to encourage that we have respectful conversations and ways that we can address it so our children will feel safe and comfortable coming back together and continue in that space.
So, having shared some of these things, I think we will also look at how do we go about what are the areas that some of these conversations should look like. And this is where we have the concept of racial socialization. And is so important because once we understand some of these things, it helps us, it gives us some sort of a framework within which you can have some of this conversation. And I know as parents, these are some of the things that we'll be looking at. How do I share with them? Within what are the things we can talk about specifically and all of that. So this is where racial socialization comes in. Now, the question is that what is racial socialization? I think, Mansa, you can pick up from there.
Okay, so basically, racial socialization is parental practice that communicates messages about race or ethnicity to our children. That is basically the approach or the messages that you are sharing to your children. My question is, what type of messages are you sharing with your children about race? Because on the side of honesty, depending on the messages we are sharing with our children, it can either equip our children or not. So we want to look at that because as children, when they grow, they begin to develop their self-identity. They observe what is going on around them and they are curious, like we said, in making sense of what is happening. So while you are helping them to develop their self-identity, you should also out for ways to teach them about acceptance of themselves and also of others. So we have to help them understand the value in similarities and in differences, that each of us are alike in some ways, and honestly, each of us are different. And we all are valuable in one way or the other. So these are the 6 key racialized socialization messages that we got from some of the research that we were looking at, and even from like personal experiences. So racial pride messages. These are messages that help our children to understand how they are different and alike based in skin color, body size, shape, hairstyle, texture, languages, clothing, holidays, what they celebrate. So when you are giving your child racial pride messages, you are helping them to understand their self-identity, their self-worth, where are they from, you know, to appreciate themselves, but also appreciate other people's culture, other people's way of life, which is very important. Another message that we want to look at is the egalitarian message. So promoting, like prompting your children to be able to express their thoughts and ideas about differences, right? But also knowing that in different ways, we are all equal. It might be at different levels, right? We all benefit from the community. We all are contributing factors in different ways to the community. We are all here to support one another. When we go to those different schools, my education is not less than someone who is a non-African, right? There is value in all of these things when we teach our children. And we also want to look at negative messages. We want to respond to expressions of dislike, biases right away with positive, kind, and explanatory languages. You cannot just say, well, that's wrong. What you said is wrong, or what you said is bad, but you cannot follow it up with an explanation why your child should not say that. For example, let's say you are in a school and someone saw Philip. Philip is using glasses, for example, right? And your child makes a comment that, oh, we have a new kid in school. He's always like wearing his glasses. I don't like that, and things like that. You as the mom, like, how do you even respond to that, right? Like, how do you respond to that? Yeah, you can acknowledge that, yes, he wears glasses. Like, have you asked Philip why is he wearing glasses? Like, what you don't like about it. Sometimes it's good for us to even know why they don't like certain things, why they don't like how somebody looks, because it's only when we understand from their own meaning that they are giving to some of these things that we are able to help them understand why these messages should not be encouraged. And behavioral messages are messages that promote active involvement. So these are messages you are encouraging your child to be involved, let's say in multicultural celebrations, in understanding different ethnic groups, trying different food types, attending like different events, celebrating different ethnicities, different race, and just different ideologies. It's very important to let your children also have exposure to some of these things.
And this is so important because, as you know, media portrayed certain categories of groups and ethnic backgrounds in a negative way, like that is what they keep on seeing. And when you engage some of these things, you begin to help them to really see not only the negative things they are seeing, what are the positive things that they have not known.
Mhm.
And by doing some of these things, it really helps them to understand that, oh, that is not all. There are other story, there are other side of the coin that we don't know, and they stick to the good ones to help them to relate better to the other, to the others.
Yes. So as we move along, one of the research that we looked at was done where they had parents and children come together, about 111 parents in the States. They brought them together to have conversation about racism, about diversity, and what that looks like. So from that research, some of the recommendations that came up and the findings was that teaching children about, let's say, Black history, Asian heritage, and other celebrations are very important, because some of the kids identify that these are ways that they will learn more, right? So as a parent, as you are supporting them, I know it's hard for you also because sometimes you may not have gotten a lot of those resources to build on your knowledge or what you know, but sometimes you can also increase your knowledge by looking at some of the recommended resources, even that teachers are sending home in your community, right? It's very important to talk to your children about racial pride. That is very important. Every child, whether you are from the BIPOC community, you are a Caucasian, everyone needs to talk, every parent needs to talk to their children about racial pride. We need to be proud of our culture, proud of ourselves, our identity. It is only in that that we can appreciate ourselves. As an agency, we are having a lot of concerns raised by parents, even children. We have a program called the Little Elite Reading Club program, which we have children ages 4 to 11. So the Little Elite Reading Club at Weybridge Community Services is there to help our children in learning about their culture, being exposed to books that maybe normally they are not exposed to in the school environment, maybe because of time or how the curriculum is structured. But we also encourage the kids to connect what they are seeing in their homes, in the community, to some of the books that they are learning. And these children are very smart. You won't believe it. They came together and they even wrote a book about themselves, where they are from. You know, I wish I have a copy of that I can just share. So for example, this is one of them, All About Me, right? All About Me. And it amazes you to see some of the things that they have put in the content they have in there. So these are children ages 4 to 11. So it's very important. Confirmation of the existence of racial bias in society. The honest truth is that we don't want to talk about some of these discriminatory practices, but we have to talk about them. It is in history. Our children are learning them in the schools, in the community, through the media. We have to be honest about it. But in our honesty, we also have to equip our children to understand that it doesn't mean because, for example, and I will use myself as an example, it doesn't mean because that my descendants were slaves, so in this era, I still have to remain a slave. That is not what we want to, the message we want to share with our children. We want to confirm, yes, their existence of racial biases, discrimination, and all of that. But we also want to talk about ways that, or things that are happening to address those issues so that our children have a balance in their knowledge around this concept and how to access resources and support. The schools are there. You have online a lot of resources. You have your support system. You have your community as well. So, and then supporting adults and children to regulate their emotions in responding to racialized stressful situations. And this is where we are all needed, honestly. As service providers, it's very important for us to also help parents to navigate that because it's difficult. I came from a war-torn country and most of my life has been through the war. And my nephew, although yes, he was at the age of 5 when we came to Canada, but he struggled with a lot of things. So, and as a parent, as a caregiver, when some of the things we don't understand, we go to the school to help us out. So what we want to encourage is patience from the school, from the teachers in helping us to understand how certain things work, because we are all different and where we are coming from, our lived experiences are different. Until we are exposed to resources and information to equip us, it's very difficult. We use the tools that we have and what we know best. So that is what we just want to kind of encourage. Philip.
Yes. So another area that we have seen, and this is very complex, is about biracial children. And we have seen this in my own practice. I've seen the challenges that comes with this. And we have to say that due to the time, we can't really delve into this. This is a whole different area in itself. But we want to make a clear statement here that this is a complex issues, and it's going on. Is going on, and I must say that this is a really important area that as society, as community, we are overlooking. But I must say that it is just the beginning, because we see differences, people, adult connecting together, coming up and having birth issues with children coming up, several of them from a biracial background. And the community is so challenging in dealing with some of these things. So we must put it there that it's a complex issues, but it's very important that we should not overlook.
Mhm. All right. So, on that topic, I think because of time, we'll not touch on it too much, but we just want to acknowledge that the issue of talking about race with racialized children is very complex, because this is like a multiracial setting where you have a dad who has two racial background or a mom, and all of these different complexities. It will take too much of the time, and we'll find a time that will really dive into that topic. But moving forward, what we want to encourage is that there are supports. We have a lot of support out there that we can connect with the teachers and our community. For next step, what we want to encourage is that start the conversation. Just be open-minded and non-judgmental. Seeking support is important. We are not an island. Demonstrate patience and understanding of the complex nature of the issue. Work collaboratively with parents. So this is for our service providers. Work collaboratively with the parent. Create a safe space. And this is one of the ways that you have been creating a safe space for parents to come and have conversations. So on this slides, we have a lot of resources that we want to recommend. Since it's going to be shared with the parent, we encourage that you can take a look. These are excellent websites that we've gone through, and they are diverse. We didn't really focus on one racial group. They are diverse, and it will help you a lot to build your knowledge around some of the concepts we've talked about. You have like Embrace Race, www.embrace race, a lot of books. You have the one for parents, and you also have the Parent Hub. We have recommended books. These are just few books that we chose, right? These are just like few books that we selected for the children. And like I mentioned before, with the 8 tips, when you are looking at choosing a book for your child, just ensure that you are looking for certain things. Choose books from BIPOC authors. Check for positive racial interaction and messages about differences with your children. And these are our references. I know we are far beyond time, but this
We
is
love all of your
wow.
information. Absolutely. And the guidance and suggestions that you provided to start from the very beginning to access age appropriate and developmentally appropriate resources. Even the resources that you gave at the end, Massa and Philip, where you celebrate even Tourism London. Um, you know, even if you're raising, if you're, a white person raising white children, if you're seeking to look for opportunities in your community to educate your children on cultural practices, on, foods and festivals, on celebrations, but also on, I loved the way you said that, Massa, the different way that families are. The different ways that families come together. What a beautiful way to learn about others. And not to be forgotten, even in addition to cultural practices, different religious practices. And we're so fortunate that in our community, we have a number of groups who will allow us the opportunity to learn more about their practices so that we can celebrate the diversity and we can appreciate that there is space for all of us and
Yes.
all of our families and all of our practices. So thank you so much for lending your knowledge and expertise to our audience today. And your guidance to caregivers about how to support their children to be inclusive and celebrate diversity has shown us how to be really intentional to establish our children's sense of belonging as well.
Yeah.
So we do very much appreciate the effort that you have lent us to help our community understand these important practices, and we really, truly appreciate you. What I've tossed on the screen here for our audience is just some contact information to us. So we'd also like to extend a thank you to our audience who has joined us as well. And just a reminder that in the coming weeks, a recording of this webinar will be posted on our website for your review. And the other thing we really encourage you to do is share this information widely. So on this slide that's posted, not only would we really appreciate a few minutes of your time to gather feedback about this presentation, and if you tell us you want to hear more, we will bring you more. So let us know your feedback about the presentation, but also on our website, and this is the second link that's listed there, is takes us right to our takes you right to the website where you can sign up for the mailing list. And if you sign up for the mailing list, then you'll get regular notifications about webinars or presentations that we are highlighting. So again, there's my email address, there's my project partner, Caitlin Chow's email address. Feel free to reach out to us if you'd like more information or connection to services, anything at all you like, because we really do want to continue to bring you timely and relevant topics and to support the needs of the caregivers in the audience. So we're really grateful for you to join us and also for that of our community partners. So Massa and Philip, do you have any final words for us before we wish everyone well on the rest of their evening?
Philip.
Well, I think we are grateful for this opportunity that we can have this conversation. And I'm so grateful for you, Tiffany, and then Caitlin, for such an awesome work you are doing in the jurisdiction there. We are so thankful.
Okay.
It's definitely our pleasure for sure. Massa?
Okay, so I just wanted to add that or remind everyone that we are from Weybridge Community Services, and our organization is open to welcoming every parent, every caregiver, open to supporting you through whatever like information you may want to know, further information you may want to gather about the topic area, and even like I think it was W who mentioned about like so how to support like biracial children. So we are open to having those conversations. We are open to providing those support, and we have a lot of programs and services that will meet the needs of everyone. But we also wanted to say thank you to our audience. It's 7:30. We know family dinner and time, which we have taken some time away from. We are sorry about that, but we really, really thank you so much for staying up to this time.
Absolutely. So we wish everyone in the room well on the rest of your journey today, and we hope to see you again in the future. Thank you and take care.